Every now and then, I'm sure we all consider just how many random encounters we fought when completing a game. Black Sigil, Blade of the Exiled, is spoken with hushed whispers as having too many. So the question myself, Cracen, and Psionisus have come to answer is, how many encounters is too many? Here's the breakdown for the types of battles that were participated in. Random encounters without a doubt are a significant portion of the game. In the case of Psionisus, taking up 49% of the time he spent streaming the game. Cracen managed to participate in a staggering 1,451 random encounters, yet spent less than half the time in them compared to Psionisus. A curious development. And as for me, I sadly don't have any claims to fame other than having the least amount of random encounters. Now we plunge into battle locations, or where all the encounters took place in the game. The hierarchy remains the same here, with Psionisus spending more time but having less encounters than Cracen. I finally squeak a lead in a few categories, having fought the highest percentage of dungeon and town encounters. The extra flavorful part is the run percent though. On average, Cracen ran from 53% of all encounters, giving us a better idea why his times are so low. And this is the culmination of it all, the category breakdown. Psionisus still maintains the lead in time and encounters fought. It consumed 55% of his stream, or 58% if you include the other encounters. Cracen fought 463 encounters, which is dwarfed by the 974 encounters he ran from. 13% of his stream time with Black Sigil was running away. 60% of the encounters he participated in, he ran away from. A cool piece of information here is despite our wide range of encounters fought and time spent in encounters, our deaths are extremely close. There are a few locations I thought were notable, and the House of Blackstone is the first. An extremely punishing dungeon with the potential to softlock you into throwing your game into the fireplace. This dungeon marks a huge milestone for Cracen because, being only the 11th encounter location, he discovered the ability to run. Any percent you see on Psionisus or myself are from the Gold Rush ability. The undulating walls of the Forbidden Fortress is next. Here's a dungeon where all three of us raked in some deaths, but Psionisus was the only one to revisit the dungeon later in the game, and the rewards for such a trek were unique to say the least. Cracen on the other hand just flew by this dungeon, running from 63% of the 30 encounters he had. The Great Isopolis Earth wings its way in. This is indisputably one of the most difficult dungeons in the game, which was a non-factor for Cracen. He ran from 97% of the encounters. Psionisus and myself struggled to get through this one. Many of the fights are time-consuming, and it's not a short dungeon by any means. And then there was the final dungeon of the game, the Dimensional Flux. Let's just say that Cracen and myself really struggled in this dungeon. Cracen ran from 26% of the grand total of random encounters in this dungeon, and 42% of his grand total of deaths were here as well. For myself, 30% of all encounters I ran from were here, which are the highest percentages of any location for both Cracen and I. Additionally, for all three of us, the Dimensional Flux accounted for the highest percentage of time spent in encounters and for total encounters of any dungeon. To say the dungeon was draining is an understatement. It really pushed us all to the edge. Psionisus, drunk on lack of sleep and having fought 92% of the encounters in the dungeon, had enough. He in fact spent more raw time fighting than any of us if you take out the 1 hour, 28 minutes, and 40 seconds Cracen spent running from the encounters in the dungeon. With so many encounters under his belt, Psionisus strolled up to the final boss at level 77 and murdered it in 4 minutes 55 seconds. Cracen too decided he would power through the final dungeon, but with sheer determination and will. Despite running from 86% of encounters, he still spent 5 hours inside the dungeon dealing with pest spirits and the final boss. His deaths totaled 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 58 seconds, making it his most punishing dungeon. And yet, despite being a measly level 45, having run from 60% of the grand total of encounters, he still developed a genius strategy mid-battle. He drained the boss of its will to live in 33 minutes 34 seconds. I was taking the final dungeon quite poorly. Despite having the least amount of time and the least amount of encounters, I still used Gold Rush to run away from 47% of the encounters. I was ready for the game to end, so I walked my level 60 self to the boss room, called him a sucklefu, and ended the fight in 7 minutes 29 seconds. And if there was one thing in common for Psionisus, Cracen, and myself, it's that we were thankful to be done. Now that we're done reliving that nightmare, here's the combined stats. Psionisus liked the game so much that even when he didn't want to do side quests, he unknowingly did side quests. He crushed us all with 50 hours of playtime. Cracen decided that he was going to take multiple gold trophies, engaging in
1,615 encounters! Holy
suckafoos, I know. I, on the other hand, get to keep my best participation medal, sitting at 986 total encounters and 37 hours played, the lowest of everyone involved. Feel free to be jealous. And lastly, I would like to express my disappointment with Psionisus. You just needed to have one less encounter. You were the chosen one. Instead, you went down a path we cannot follow. You broke our heart. Is that enough prequel Star Wars references? That's a wrap for this encounter report. Please do me a favor and visit Cracen's Twitch channel and Psionisus' Twitch channel because they are wonderful streamers who put their sanity on the line for all this to happen. Well, thank you Cracen and thank you Psionisus for the shenanigans. And thank you for watching. I appreciate it. See you on the next video. Peace.
Please, let the nightmare end.
Alrighty, I finally beat it!
This game literally just gets worse and worse! Worse and worse and worse! The whole time! It just gets worse!
Have you ever, sat there and asked yourself, why? Why do I do this?
I think Axelrod hates me. I think I now know how Axelrod feels about me. I can see the hatred coming from this game.